Good evening, race fans, and on behalf of what I'm going to call the ragtag bunch of misfits that organized this party, welcome to the STN Esports Network, and we are going to fasten our seatbelts up here in the broadcast booth and get ready for what's going to be some type of a show. We just haven't figured out quite what yet. Jacob Seelman, alongside Blake McCandless, as we are coming to you from the virtual Eldora Speedway, and a half mile of clay plus a handful of NASCAR drivers and a whole bunch of personalities and industry and media people. And this is what we end up with, Blake. It is the Kickin the Tires lower half dash presented by Universal Coin and Bullion. And as I said, we're in for some sort of a show. The question is exactly what it's going to be. And I know I roped you into this last minute, but I'm kind of excited to figure out exactly what it is we're going to see tonight.
And Jacob, I think that's the question that everybody is looking to answer right now is you see all the diversity in the field. We talk about, whether it's media personalities, whether it's drivers that get out and duke it out on the racetrack. There's varying types of experience out of the sim, within the sim, and then you take all of that, you throw them on dirt, you throw them in a street stock, which Eldora already kind of referred to as the super speedway of dirt tracks. It's big, it's wide, it's long, and then you throw these cars that are going to be rung up the entire time they're around this speedway. So Jacob, I'm just like you. I don't know what we're going to see, but whatever it ends up being, whatever the final results are, I think us and the viewers out there are going to be very pleased with it.
I think so too. We're going to kick off tonight's broadcast by actually bringing in one of the personalities involved in this. That's not only competing in tonight's field, he's also repping for the title sponsor of this event, and that is none other than esports editor for Kickin the Tires, Seth Eggert. Seth, first off, we're glad that you got volunteered to come and join us for a couple of minutes. Second off, what are you experiencing as you've turned laps the last half hour or so prepping for this deal?
I'm experiencing how much less experience I have than the NASCAR drivers.
So from our perspective, before we go, obviously, this is a cool deal to be able to get you guys and really kind of put us media types head to head with some of the guys that we report on every weekend. But from your perspective, it's a little bit different in this case because you're repping for Kickin the Tires and flying the flag there tonight. Obviously, a lot of your esports coverage through kickinthetires.net. Talk a little bit about that, and certainly cool to have you guys on board for this deal tonight.
Yeah, we started covering esports late last year, went full board this year, covering the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, covering Road to Pro, the replacements, the iRacing Pro Invitational, you name it, we're pretty much covering it at this point, still adding a few things here and there. It is definitely interesting because way back when I got my start doing this very thing, writing about iRacing, and it's almost surreal that it's coming full circle that I'm representing a outlet that I'm writing for in a race on iRacing.
And real quickly, before we cut you loose to go qualify, any expectations for tonight, or are you just setting the bar as low as you can go?
I hope to finish. I hope to finish.
We'll give you that. Obviously, we'll see if we can't call on you a little bit throughout the night, but obviously glad to have you on board, and best of luck against what is a very eclectic field here.
Thank you.
All right, Blake, so you heard it from the horse's mouth, we'll say. Seth doesn't know what to expect, which means we shouldn't know what to expect, but I think what we've seen out of practice is this is going to be slide job city by the time we get done with it.
Oh, absolutely, Jacob. You think about that. These drivers are largely going to be on the throttle the entire time they're moving around this racetrack. And with these street stocks, one of the benefits of them, especially here on the iRacing service, obviously you have a lot of guys that race this in real life, but these things drive like tanks for a reason. They allow for some close door-to-door action-packed racing, and of course you get these guys from all types of different experience across the NASCAR and sim racing world. It's going to make for one heck of a show. You got guys that are going to make moves because they know how to make them, and then there are other guys that are going to make moves because they just don't know any better. So we're going to be treated for, I think, quite a heck of a show. And like everyone out there, it's a big unknown on what's going to happen here.
And we're looking forward to telling the story as we go. Really quickly talking about the format for tonight. It is 2-lap qualifying to set the grid for a pair of heat races that will be 8 laps in distance and basically set up the inside and outside files respectively for tonight's feature, and then feature going 100 laps. So a lot of time, Blake, to make something happen, and I think we're already seeing the mix of experience levels, mix of time on the sim. There are some real-life NASCAR drivers that have already performed very well. There are some personalities in the field that have already performed really well, and then there's the crop in the bottom half of the field that, as Seth said, is just trying not to get wrecked tonight.
Oh, no doubt about it. I think, Jacob, I know we had a bunch of media personalities coming out tonight, and I was hoping if there was just a little bit, an inkling of hope, rather, that perhaps we could see you behind the wheel of one of these street stocks. Of course, everybody wants you up here in the booth, but I'd love to see if Jacob Seelman could take a ride around here at Eldora and kind of teach all our viewers out there how it's done.
The only teaching I would be doing if you put me in one of these street stocks, especially at Eldora, is how to turn it over just about as quickly. There's a reason that I'm up here with a microphone and not holding a steering wheel. I'll take multiple times.
I'll take your word for it, Jacob. That you got a good mix out here, as we've talked about a couple of times, and right now qualifying times still rolling in. Have a couple minutes left in our qualifying session before each of these drivers take down their 2 laps, and there's a bigger spread, Jacob, than I would have expected. You think about Eldora and these street stocks, how they're going to be winded up the whole time around the racetrack, but you look out over the speed chart right now, you see Garrett Smithley on the pole for the time being at a 20.152, but a pretty big spread and larger than I would have expected, even within the top 10. You look at towards the back half of the top 10, a guy like Landon Cassill, a 20.291. You think about, roughly about a tenth and a half, nearly 2 seconds off, or 2/10 rather, off the pace, and that's just within our top 10 core group of drivers.
It's a solid spread. However, I have been told this is necessary tonight, and because it just changed hands at the top of the board, we have a new driver on the top of that score sheet, Blake McCandless, Tanner Berryhill, going quick time at 20.054. So for all those begging for a Millbridge-esque quick time tonight, there you go. And that's a tenth faster than anybody else in this field, by the way. So if we weren't already looking at Tanner Berryhill as a potential favorite going into tonight, there you go.
Well, and he has what we'll look at, one more driver that has not pulled a qualifying time just yet. A couple of drivers may be on the first of their 2 laps, but only about a minute remains. So if they don't get out on the track soon, not going to be able to pull anything off. But this almost looks like a bell curve, if you will, Jacob. You see a couple of drivers who have really figured out the line that you want to run, at least here in qualifying. But then you look around, and this is where all that action is going to be, right around the 10th to 20th position. You see so many drivers that are within a couple of hundredths, even in a couple of cases, a couple of thousandths of a second, and that is where all this action is going to be. You see a whole different host of names around that area. Brad Perez, Joshua Bilicki, Nick Olson, just right there, separated by just 5/100ths of a second. You see Joey Gase just past that battle. So this is where our action is going to come from, Jacob, is all that battling in the middle of the pack amongst guys that may not be as experienced on the sim, other guys that are more experienced than others.
I want to quickly, before we get into the lineup for our first heat, call attention to the battle of photographers that I'm personally going to be watching over the course of this, because it looks like they're going to end up in the same heat too, so it'll be fun to watch. But Bar Visuals, Dalen Barr versus Chris Owens, 91 and 62, are going to line up 4th and 5th in Heat 1, and I promise you, there is no bigger point of pride than whichever one of those two finishes higher than the other at the end of the night. So that's going to be fun to keep an eye on.
Oh, certainly. And I think, Jacob, we finally kicked it forward. We're going to have some large heats here. I'll go ahead and throw it to you for the starting lineup for heat number 1.
Yeah, lineup for heat race number 1 going to look like this. On the pole after setting fast time and qualifying, Tanner Berryhill, veteran of both the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Cup Series. Alongside him in the 2, Nick Payne. Row number 2, Michael Fisher and Dalen Barr. Sharing the second row of the grid, Chris Owens and Tommy Joe Martins on row number 3. Then it's Landon Cassill and Lee Herron in row 4, Josh Bilicki and David Kriske in row 5, followed by Joey Gase and J.R. Houston in the 6th row, Colin Fern and Ryan Vargas in row number 7, Ford Martin, Toby Christie, row 8, and on the final row of the grid for heat race number 1, Sam Whitman and Eric Howard. 18 cars strong, and Blake, as we mentioned in our format, these 8 laps in distance, so it's going to be really short, but you're going to want to make up positions because this will set the inside file for the 100-lap main event.
Well, and that's what I was going to mention, Jacob, that it's not like we're taking a top 3 or a top 5 from this heat. Every single person is moving on, and this is more like a duel, if you will, just to try and set that inside order. But if you feel like you maybe missed the mark a little bit in qualifying, like you said, only 8 laps to try and set the order. But, Jacob, this is what we're all looking forward to. 100 laps around Eldora with this large of a field. It's almost funny to think about, but it's certainly going to be exciting, something different out here. As again, you think about heat races, you typically see probably 8, 9, 10 cars out on the grid. Call it 18, call it that every single one of them is going to advance, but you only put up 8 laps to do it. So we're not going to be talking about transfer spots up here in the top 5. We're going to be talking about, can a guy like Ryan Vargas improve his position from 14th to 10th for the main event?
Indeed. Field starting to roll off behind the iRacing.com pace truck, and when you look at Tanner Berryhill on the pole, it's interesting to think that not only does he have NASCAR experience from the past, he's also got some time in a dirt midget as well through the years. So this is not something that's an unknown to him. In fact, I would say that's a little bit of a secret weapon in his back pocket for the 17. All things we're going to keep an eye on, and you mentioned it, Blake. Those in the mid-pack from about 8th in this heat, we'll call it, Landon Cassill on back through. That's where it's going to get really, really fun really quick around this half mile.
Oh, certainly so. You have a bunch of drivers that were within a couple of hundredths of a second in their qualifying time, and obviously, like we mentioned, all you take is really 2 or 3 spots. If you can improve that, it sets you up well for the main feature tonight. But here comes the iRacing.com pace truck. It'll pull off. We'll turn the field over to Tanner Berryhill, who will get us going here tonight at Eldora. Heat number 1, he'll throw the throttle down. We're green flag racing at Eldora. They're looking 3 wide for second, but here comes Nick Payne on the bottom side, challenging for the lead out of 2.
Side by side for a moment as they try to work the bottom of the racetrack. To the inside goes Nick Payne. Tanner Berryhill throws the block. No slider there. It's going to be Berryhill easily on lap number 1 as the top 4 single out. 3 wide, though, from 5th on back.
And leading that pack is that 44 machine on the top side of Tommy Joe Martin. A little bit of a blinker just in front of them. That's Michael Fisher, who checks them up and stacks them up just a little bit as they work it into 3 and 4. Tommy Joe Martin on the outside, into the outside wall. Not going to slow him up too much, though. Chris Owens, though, wants a piece of the top 5.
Owens down to the inside trying to make tracks. Tommy Joe up top in the 44, and now up top in the 3 is Lee Herron trying to make some tracks as he and Owens go side by side. Behind them, here comes Landon Cassill in the 89.
Landon Cassill, will see if he'll throw a couple of White Castles out here tonight, but right now he's going to stay put on the top side of the racetrack, looking for a way around Chris Owens up there on the bottom. This is the battle for the 7th position. Cassill to the outside, Owens along the inside. Such a wide racetrack here at Eldora. They'll stack up, check up here on the front straightaway. Cassill carries that momentum into 1 and 2, looking nearly 3 wide for a second on the outside of Lee Herron.
Yeah, Lee Heron had to check up and almost stacked everybody up. Now Cassill got a piece of the wall off turn number 2. As we're coming to 3 laps to go, it'll be 5 down. Owen settles it back in, and now Lee Heron and Tommy Joe Martin's going at it for position number 4. Tommy Joe trying to fend off the charge as one driver who has quietly snuck their way forward a little bit in the back of the pack. Ford Martin up 3. He's challenged and advanced to 12th and looking on J.R. Houston.
And J.R. Houston doing a good job right there. He has also moved up 1 spot from 12th to 11th as he'll take the 2 to go. This time by, he sees a challenge on the outside from David Christie. Christie moving alongside. They bang doors down the back straightaway, give Christie that battle for 10th. White flag in the air this time for Tanner Berryhill, though, unchallenged and with about a second of a lead in 1.
Yeah, final time around for the 17 of Tanner Berryhill. We said he was going to be relatively dominant. He has proven that, driven away in heat race number 1, and it's going to be Berryhill around turn 4 to the checkered flag. Tanner Berryhill cruises to the victory in heat race number 1 for the Kickin the Tires lower half dash here at Eldora. Second goes to Nick Payne, Dalen Barr third, Tommy Joe Martins fourth, Lee Heron in 5th, followed by Michael Fisher, Chris Owens, Landon Cassill, Josh Balicki, and J.R. Houston, the final spot in the top 10.
Finishing up the...
You called it, Blake. It got exciting really quick.
It certainly did, and again, it was all those battles right around the mid-pack where I think you start to see a lot of these guys obviously came out in practice, but the biggest thing that these guys maybe didn't even get a test of in that first heat, they'll obviously all be moving on to the main event, is how this track is drastically, and I mean drastically, going to change when you throw roughly, let's call it, we had 18 in heat 1, we have 17 lined up here for heat number 2, so 35 cars, 100 laps. This Eldora Speedway, you may want to take a good look at it now because it's going to look drastically different here once we get this main feature rolling, but here we go, starting lineup for heat number 2.
Yeah, Garrett Smithley on the front row alongside Casey Heschel, Jared Overstreet and Bailey Curry making up row number 2. Seth Eggert, who we talked to a little bit ago, one of 2 Kickin the Tires cars in the field tonight, and Ryan Ellis, who along with Cody Ware helped organize this party in row number 3. Stephen Ellis and Brad Perez in row 4. Nick Olson, Noah Lewis in the 5th row of the grid. Matteo Marcheski in row number 6 alongside Josh Altus. Cody Ware, Justin Malillo. Glad to see Justin in the field tonight, by the way. Starting 13th and 14th, respectively, Spencer Boyd and William Pelote in row number 8, and Justin Schuler, the second of the 2 Kickin the Tires cars, on the tail. Schuler literally getting off work just in time to sneak into the server here, so he'll start shotgun on heat race number 2 as the field forming up behind the iRacing pace truck, and we're about a half lap from green. I'd say the talent's pretty evenly spread throughout this second heat, so it's going to be interesting to see which comers and goers we get as it goes along. Smithley in the 26, Heschel in the 01 as the pace truck dives to the pit lane. Green flag in the air off turn number 4. Top 2 single file it out really quickly, but on the move in the 53, Bailey Curry trying to go for second in 1 and 2.
Curry to the outside of the racetrack. He'll take all that momentum in that Dale Earnhardt-inspired paint scheme as Smithley will defend high. Here comes Casey Heschel down to the bottom side of the racetrack. They look 3 wide for just a moment. Curry will move it to the high side, looking to battle and move ahead of that 0-1 for second. Slide job fails. Smithley into the outside wall. He's able to keep going. Heschel slides on back as he gets spun around in 1 and 2. So Smithley able to escape, but not before losing a handful of positions. He's still getting shoved out there, falling back, and back throughout this field.
Yeah, from the lead to 7th in the span of less than a corner. The slide job gone wrong for Casey Heschel, and it collects Garrett Smithley. Smithley now makes contact as they were 3 wide down into the corner. That's the 21 of Eggert as Smithley tried the slider, and it was like pinballs through the middle of 3 and 4 as Smithley gets back up and moves back around the top 5. In fact, he does slot into 5th. Behind him, Nick Olson and Brad Perez going at it. Perez trying to work the inside lane, and they're going at it for 6th as we approach halfway.
Oh, big trouble in the back straightaway here. Schuler is around. Justin Malillo is involved. It was about 5 or 6 cars that were all stacked up as they, believe it or not, were 5 wide off the exit of turn number 2. That did not work out, as you can see. Several cars falling back throughout the field, so that back 12 or back 5 cars rather going to be quite a long way for them to climb as they get in that trouble. You have to think too with our leaders, and as you look at our top 4, pretty much single file throughout the field. They're going to be approaching that lap traffic at some point. Is it going to come in the next 2 laps as they take 2 to go this time by? We'll see. Right now, Curry holds the lead, followed by Overstreet and Ryan Ellis in 3rd.
Yeah, and Overstreet is trying to close in, running a little bit lower than the 53 of Bailey Curry. So Jared Overstreet thinking maybe this may not be over coming to the white flag. He dives down into the middle of turn number 3. Ellis, though, in the NOS Energy Drink number 71, trying to find some tracks. White flag goes in the air. One more time around as they work back into 1 and 2. Overstreet's got the run, just cannot quite get the forward drive down the backstretch. Maybe one final shot as it. Does he pitch it in? No, he's not. It looks like it's going to be Bailey Curry through the final set of corners, and Overstreet trying to the bottom, just can't get it pointed straight. Bailey Curry wins the 2nd heat race here for the Kickin' the Tires lower half dash at Eldora over Jared Overstreet, Ryan Ellis, Stephen Ellis, and Garrett Smithley with the rebound to 5th.
It'll be Brad Perez in 6th. Nick Olson brings it home 7th. NASCAR Cup Series driver Cody Ware finishes up in 8th. Noah Lewis in 9th. Joshua Altis rounds out your top 10. It'll be William Paulette that finishes up in 11th. 12th goes to Mato Marchesi. 13th is Seth Eggert. And again, Jacob, you get into these cars that were all involved in that accident. Seth Eggert in 13th. 14th is Casey Heschel. 15th, Justin Malillo, and they eat 53. 16th, Spencer Boyd. 17th, Justin Schuler. And again, as we mentioned, big grid that we have to look forward to for tonight's main event. And they're already setting off the pyrotechnics here at Eldora Speedway. So interesting little tidbit there as we'll get this show rolling.
Already basically setting the grid for the feature, so we'll go ahead and run them down. The starting lineup, Tanner Berryhill and Bailey Curry, your 2 heat race winners making up the front row of the grid. Nick Payne and Jared Overstreet starting 3rd and 4th. Dalen Barr rolls off from 5th, does Barr Visuals. Ryan Ellis 6th. Tommy Joe Martin starting 7th alongside Stephen Ellis. Lee Heron rolling 9th, and Garrett Smithley repping for the NASCAR Cup Series, completing the top 10. Michael Fisher and Brad Perez on row number 6. Then it's Chris Owens and Nick Olson in row number 7. Landon Cassill, Cody Ware in row 8. Josh Balicki and Noah Lewis in row number 9. J.R. Houston, Josh Altis in row number 10. David Kriske and William Pelote in row number 11. Ryan Vargas and Mateo Marcheski in row 12. Ford Martin, Seth Eggert in row number 13, Colin Fern, Casey Heschel, Sam Whitman, Justin Malillo, the rest of the top 30. Then it's Toby Christie, Spencer Boyd, Eric Howard, Justin Schuler, Joey Gase, the rest of the starting field, 35 strong. What are we watching, Mr. McCandless, as we come down? It'll be one more pace lap before we're green. What are you keeping your eyes on here?
Well, I can't keep my eyes away from, I don't know if it's a glitch or something, but the pyrotechnics going off here was a bit interesting there as they grid. Hope that's not going to be going on throughout this race, but Jacob, 100 laps in a dirt race. This is going to be about attrition, avoiding some contact. These street stocks can take a lot of the beating and banging we may see out here, but you have to be there at the end. Can't lose your head. 100 laps. Long way to go for Terry Bannerhill as Tanner Berryhill gets us started. We're green flag at Eldora.
Down to turn number 1 they go. Berryhill on the jump side by side for second as sliding through the corner is Nick Payne, but Bailey Curry with the run closes right up to the back bumper of the Berryhill machine. Here comes Payne though on the bottom, tried to make it 3 wide for the race lead for a moment. Not going to happen though as Berryhill leads the opening lap. Side by side for second, slide job. Nick Payne goes all the way around the inside berm, can't make it stick.
And Payne stuck out there on the inside. It looks like right now at least a majority of this field trying to get it done on the top side, as taking a dive at him for just a moment was Nick Payne. Directly behind him, Overstreet to the bottom side once again. They work it 3, nearly 4 wide off the exit of the corner, as right now, Jacob, it looks like that high side working high, wide, and handsome.
The biggest thing we've got to note here, Blake, is this track is going to change a lot over the course of 100 laps, and where you are fast now is more than likely not going to be where you're fast at the end of this race. These guys are going to have to adapt as we go.
And certainly the case. You already see most of these guys adapting right now to the top side, but you think about it, 35 cars nearly all running along the top side. With these big, heavy race cars, it's going to wear in very, very quickly. But I think the one thing that benefits the high side here, Jacob, is how these street stocks they take kindly to hitting that outside wall. You're not going to punish your race car if you're brushed up against it. May even help you get off the corner just a little bit. So it's going to take a lot for this high side, it looks like, to try and inch away, and for that bottom side to be really the preferred groove.
Yeah, Berry Hill's already opened up a 3/4 of a second advantage as one car goes spinning in the corner. Ryan Ellis in turn number 2 from 12th place. The NOS Energy Drink number 71 goes around on the inside and sees cars streaming past. He will have some damage to the back end of that race car and get it righted, I think, without losing a lap. But it's going to be very, very close as he falls almost all the way to the tail of this field from 12th down to 30th on lap number 7.
Definite tough luck there for Ryan Ellis, as it's going to be a long climb throughout this field. Another driver that fell back just a couple of moments ago was Nick Payne. Started up in the 3rd spot, has already fallen back into the 13th position now. Has a pretty good battle going on right now for that 13th spot. He's got Landon Cassill directly behind him, up from 15th to 14th, as right now, Jacob, everyone, Mile High Line is working here at Eldora.
It is, and by the way, let's point out that the winner of this race is not going to leave the server with just bragging rights. The winner of the series actually gets a 10th ounce $5 certified gold coin in a holder, hand signed by Mikey Tucker Frost, the designer of the family of eagles, on the back of all U.S. Gold Eagle bullion coins, and that prize courtesy of Kickin the Tires and Mike Fulgens of Universal Coin and Bullion, the presenting sponsor of the Kickin the Tires lower half dash series. So that's going to be fun to look forward to as we get a couple of these races under our belt. Blake McCandless, but right now we're watching a battle gone wrong. Caution flag waves. It was Nick Olson, Garrett Smithley. They were battling inside the top 10. It looked like a little bit of contact, and around off the bumper of Smithley went the City Chevrolet 28 of Olson, who free falls through the field, and our first yellow on lap number 11.
And I'll tell you what, Jacob, this is something that I've even come to find in just my personal sim racing experience. If you're not all too familiar with these street stocks, and like Garrett Smithley, you run a little bit more of what you would see on the NASCAR National Series side of things, the trucks, the Xfinity, the Cup car, the nose on this street stock can really creep up on you and bite you. It extends a lot further out than if you're used to those cars than you would typically see. And I think that's what we saw from Smithley that time. Obviously, didn't look intentional getting into Olson. He just thought he had momentum, and that nose on these street stocks extends so far out from that cockpit view that these guys may be used to seeing. It was just enough to turn Olson around, but we've seen a couple of accidents here, so the caution flag being flown with this battle up inside, or was taking place inside the top 10. A couple of drivers already worse for the wear. I know I saw Toby Christie. He got turned around, and because of all the traffic, went 2 laps down trying to get it going straight. A couple of other drivers, as we've seen, Ryan Ellis fell back into the 29th spot is where he runs now. So a couple of accidents. Again, we'll see how these guys are able to manage this situation with these cautions coming. But Jacob, a lot of racing action already happened, but as we mentioned, lap 14 of 100, still a long way to go.
A very long way to go, and that's what's going to make this fun. Restart coming as we start lap number 15. Green flag back in the air here at Eldora, and a big jump for Berry Hill. Slide job city behind the 3 wide per second. And where did Tommy Joe Martins come from on the restart? The 44 up the outside, ripping the top. He goes to P2.
Tommy Joe Martins to P2, and he's going to be able to hang on. They're 3 wide off the exit of corner number 4. Bailey Curry once again trying to hang on. And rebound, Smithley turns another car once again, and there's a big stack up here on the exit of turn number 2. Has to be a caution flag. 4, 5, 6, count them, 8 and more getting involved as Garrett Smithley got into the back of, I believe, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, I believe it was Jarrett Overstreet that the 26 turned around, and with this restart, there's just nowhere for these cars to go, even at a wide racetrack like Eldora. So Smithley turns Overstreet, and big calamity ensues.
So back under caution just as quickly as we went green after a couple of wild shuffles there on the restart, and that's really opened up for a lot of the guys who started deep in the field, Blake McCandless, to be able to make some tracks. I'm looking down the list already. Look at a guy like J.R. Houston, who's climbed from 19th to 7th early, or Orion Vargas, who started 23rd and has run up to 11th.
There's certainly a lot of people who have marched back up. Looking at another one, David Chrissy, 21st up into the 13th spot. But with that, you get these guys moving forward. You're going to have your fair share of drivers as well who have fallen back. And that includes a long list of plenty of drivers that started amongst our top 10. Nick Payne started 3rd, back to 17th. You think of Ryan Ellis, originally back almost in 30th, now runs 23rd, so trying to work his way back forward. Jared Overstreet is now back into the 27th spot after that contact with Garrett Smithley. Stephen Ellis, another one of those drivers. So plenty of guys still looking to try and make their way to the end here. And how about this, Jacob? We were talking about him early enough. I still race NASCAR Racing 2003 with him all the time. Great to see him start at 30th up to 15th with everything that's going on. Justin Malillo now sniffing inside the top 15.
Malillo certainly making tracks, and good to see him up in the mix. Back green, starting lap number 20. Slide job for the runner-up spot. Bailey Curry had the look, couldn't make the inside work. He bangs doors with Dalen Barr as they're going at it for P3. Tommy Joe Martins, though, high, wide, and handsome, chasing the leader, Tanner Berryhill.
And there's a couple of cars behind them that make contact around that 8th position. Believe it's around where that 89 machine is messed up. They're 3 wide behind them. Banging doors right here is J.R. Houston as he gets involved in it. Chris Owens as well. Stephen Ellis trying to work his way back up despite the fact he scored 1 lap down, and they're not going to make it out of 3 and 4. Ellis, by the way, is spun around. A couple of other cars get involved in this as well. Colin Fern, Justin Schuler still under the green flag.
Staying green for the moment. There's the caution after calamity. 22 laps going to be in the books when they come back around. And the yellow flag waving for the 3rd time here at the virtual Eldora Speedway. Tanner Berryhill leads Tommy Joe Martins, Bailey Curry, Dalen Barr, and now Michael Fisher up inside the top 5 as we've continued to shuffle guys in and out of this top 10. Shout out, though, to the Spencer Boyd machine. Started 32nd on this field, and all of a sudden, the number 30 rides in 13th place.
And Jacob, I think that just goes back to the theme that we were talking about pre-race, was how this is going to be a race of attrition with how many cars are out here on this racetrack. As you've seen, we're going to have a lot of guys coming and going throughout the night. Boyd able to work his way up into the 13th spot, and he has quite a bit of damage on the front nose of that green flame machine. And that's just the capability. These street stocks can take a pounding and are still going to be able to work their way up to speed. So a lot of this lap traffic you may be seeing, don't expect them to really just pull over because they're going to be slower. They're going to be able to keep up for the most part with our leaders out there, at least down the straightaway.
So riding under caution, approaching what will be 1/4 distance. Berryhill, Martins, Curry, Dalen Barr, Michael Fisher, that's your front 5. Then Landon Cassill 6th, Chris Owens 7th, Cody Ware up to 8th, Josh Balicki in 9th, and Nick Olson 10th, Ryan Vargas, David Kriske, Spencer Boyd, Noah Lewis, Justin Malillo through 15th, Ryan Ellis 16th, Garrett Smithley, Brad Perez, Sam Whitman, Justin Schuler, the rest of the top 20 as it sits right now, 26 cars in total on the lead lap, going back green with 1/4 of this race complete. 25 down, 75 to go. Green flag waves, and Berryhill's on the jump.
And Berryhill gets a pretty nice jump, but so does the driver directly behind him. And Tommy Joe Martins nearly in lockstep through 3 and 4 with Dalen Barr as well. And how about this, Jacob? P4 on the top side, P5 at the stripe. Landon Cassill with Cody Ware looking to challenge inside the top 5.
Yeah, I seem to remember a Landon Cassill-esque looking person tell me a couple years ago at the Chili Bowl, I'm not a dirt guy, I'm just doing this trying to maybe figure this out. He looks like he's figured it out pretty well, at least on iRacing right now, moving his way forward. But the 4th yellow flag of this race coming out with 27 laps complete.
27 laps on the board, but that was a huge accident that was off the exit of corner number 2. It all got started, it looks like, with Smithley, just behind Smithley, rather. It was Spencer Boyd and a couple of drivers getting together. I believe Ryan Ellis was in this as well. Boyd went 3 wide when they were already just about 2 cars shoved up into the outside wall. That just didn't work out. Several drivers involved in this one. Joey Gase got a piece of it. Ryan Ellis is involved. Justin Malillo able to escape. Noah Lewis was spun to the inside wall, as well as Joshua Altus. Several drivers nowhere to go, despite the large amount of space you have to try and work it out here at Eldora. These street stocks, believe it or not, they're hard to get going. They're also hard to get slowed down as well.
So working the 29th of 100 laps here early on, and glancing through the field, you've been talking a little bit about Justin Malillo, who has now climbed his way from 30th all the way up to the number 13 position under this caution flag, and a really cool scheme that Malillo has on the car tonight. It's actually based off his grandfather's 1969 Chevelle, nicknamed the Silver Streak. So it's a cool looking car, and in Justin's own words, it's basic and boring, but it's our family scheme, and I love it. And it's really cool to see those kind of little things that we can pull into this broadcast. So Malillo has marched his way forward up inside the top 15 as we cross the 30 lap mark here at Eldora, and Tanner Berryhill hanging out up on the front of this field. He has led the entire way so far, Blake McCandless, and looks to be fairly dominant.
He sure does, and I've talked with Justin a little bit about that. It's actually a nice little shout-out that we've kind of been able to talk about. I've run paint schemes from my grandfather, who ran Pro Stock with Sox and Martin back in the day, so I can get simple paint schemes, but if they have a lot of meaning, obviously, you don't tend to care about that. You want to run the colors that runs in your family bloodline. But Tanner Berryhill doesn't get quite the launch he wanted off the corner. We may have a challenge for the lead here, as Curry going to have the momentum off the exit of 2. Landon Cassill is spun in front of the field and collects a bunch of them off the exit of the corner. It's a junkyard on the back straightaway, but are we going to get the caution flag just yet? Not yet. They're nearly dead even at the stripe. They're still trying to dig, thinking that that yellow flag may be moments away.
Not coming out yet. 3 wide for the lead. And where did Dalen Barr come from in the mix? Slide job. Bailey Curry parks it on the nose of the 17 of Berryhill. You've got a new leader on lap number 33 as Bailey Curry goes to the top of the board, and they're almost 4 wide for the race lead in 2.
And it's Tommy Joe Martin able to make his way by. He nearly had the momentum to try to make a move in 3 and 4. He gets into the outside retaining wall. Now Tommy Joe Martin tries to collect it back up once again. Lap traffic going to be playing a factor here after that huge accident and no yellow flag. So Bailey Curry going to have to be our first leader that works pretty smart here, as he'll come up on the lap traffic of David Kriske right now. Martin's hanging on for second. A two-wide battle now brewing behind them. Chris Owens looking to get a part of it. But on the inside there, 17 Machine of Berry Hill looking to get his lead back.
And the leaders are already working traffic as we've been green for a few laps now. Berry Hill trapped on the bottom, and that's opened the door for several guys on the outside. Tommy Joe Martins is there. Dalen Barr is there. Bailey Curry's opened up about an 8-car length lead as they split a lap car 3 wide. Berry Hill on the bottom, Barr on the outside as Berry Hill finds a hole up top and nearly makes contact with the 44 of Tommy Joe Martins.
And he almost got into the side of Dalen Barr as well, as Barr will try to throw it in now. He throws the slide job. Counterpunch coming here on the bottom side. Working lap, if you can believe it, 39. Still a long ways to go. Lap 38, rather.
And they crash in the corner. Dalen Barr, Tanner Berryhill get into it. They pile up a few more down the backstretch. Caution is out. Garrett Smithley gets collected.
And Smithley runs right into Tanner Berryhill as Berryhill just trying to get his nose pointed in the right direction. Big contact there, and Jacob, that's exactly what we were expecting to see after the caution flag was not flown. You had about 10 cars parked here on the back straightaway for a couple of seconds, so you knew that lap traffic was eventually going to play a factor. It does, and we get exactly what we thought we were going to see. Big calamity up here with some of our leaders trying to navigate through these lap cars.
Well, that got pretty wild and woolly in a hurry. And once the leader and dominating the early portion of this race, Tanner Berryhill, now back outside the top 10. How much did that shuffle the front of the field? Let's take a look. Bailey Curry leads it now over Tommy Joe Martins. Chris Owens has risen to third all of a sudden with that exchange. Brad Perez fourth and Michael Fisher up to the 5 spot. Cody Ware sits sixth. Garrett Smithley seventh despite collecting contact with Tanner Berryhill there. Colin Fern up to the 8th spot. Spencer Boyd 32nd to 9th. And how about Sam Whitman 29th to 10th?
And you see a couple of cars directly behind them. How about Ryan Vargas, a name we haven't mentioned in a little while? He's up to 11th. Justin Malillo in 12th. Despite getting turned, Landon Cassill still resumes a lead lap spot in the 13th spot. Billicky directly behind him in 14th, and Joshua Altus in 15th. So a lot of guys, despite all this calamity, and even despite the damage, we've seen that with Smithley's case, you can still maintain your track position as long as you get it going. The main question, Jacob, we've seen when a stack-up happens and how many cars it collects, is it going to happen for our race lead? Because that is when this shuffling order is going to get all out of whack.
So, we've had a moment to catch our breaths, and we're going to go green, not quite to the halfway point of this race, but it's going to be awfully close. Bailey Curry lining up on the bottom of the racetrack as the control car alongside Tommy Joe Martins, and I'm keeping my eyes on Brad Perez up to the 4th spot, the first time we've really seen his name up towards the front of the order so far tonight, but really impressive run by that 38 to jump. He's kind of quietly been in the mix tonight, I'd say, Blake.
And no other way that Bradley Perez would rather have it, as we're going to actually extend this caution flag to get a couple of more cars waved around here and back onto the lead lap to try and slow down the amount of lap traffic we have. I believe there's only 2 cars that are not going to see the checkered flag in this thing. That is Lee Herron and William Paulette back there in the 33rd and 34th positions respectively, but a couple of lap cars aside for that, believe they're still all running right now, and think the lights are going to go off the pace car this time. We'll see if they extend it once again or if we'll finally get going green here. But Jacob, we're not even halfway yet. We mentioned how attrition is going to play into this, and just trying to keep your car clean and make it to the end of this thing is so huge. I believe that's why you see the drivers up front that we've seen in Curry and Tommy Joe Martins. They've been able to be ahead of all the carnage. Can they stay there or become part of it? We'll find out here if Tommy Joe Martins can get that restart that Curry got that ended up getting him the race lead. However, nice jump there from Curry. He's down and away, and actually Tommy Joe Martins slow off the corner. Something got a miss on the 44. He shuffled all the way back into 5th. Was in 2nd, perhaps missed a shift. Nevertheless, 44 anchor as they spin behind them.
No caution yet. Bailey Curry holds the lead in the Goodwrench Plus number 53 as we close in on the halfway point of this race. And for those looking at timing and scoring, it looks like the 35 of Jared Overstreet may have picked up a lap here somewhere in the exchange. So we'll check with race control on that in just a minute. It's Bailey Curry over Chris Owens in the 62. Now up to the 2 spot from 13th place. Michael Fisher, Garrett Smithley, and Tommy Joe has settled in that 5 position, Blake, but not sure what happened on the restart.
And I think it's a case you think about when you usually come out to a dirt track, you're running, one of the modifieds, one of the late models on here, maybe even a sprint car. They all work out of just first gear, and maybe, lack of dirt experience in real life, a little bit of dirt experience on the sim. You're just used to not having to shift these street stocks when you're out here on the dirt, and I think that's what it was. It wasn't a mechanical issue for Tommy Joe Martins, especially because he didn't have damage, so I think he just missed a shift there, but that stacked up the whole outside line. He now gets into the back of Garrett Smithley, who, by the way, back into the podium despite not having a nose on his machine.
Yeah, where did Smithley come from all of a sudden? He's worked his way back up into the mix as we approach the halfway point. Bailey Curry, though, trying to run away and hide over Chris Owens and the remainder of the field. This time by, it is going to be the halfway point of this race, which is one of those you sit back and think we're only halfway, but we've certainly have had a decent amount of caution flags in the first half of this event. And as we cross the halfway point of tonight's race, it's time to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series with racing from the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Bailey Curry leads it at the halfway point of this race as they're crashing just below the leader. We'll get a look on who that was in a moment, but Chris Owens rides 2nd behind Bailey Curry, Garrett Smithley 3rd, Michael Fisher 4th, and Cody Ware in 5th. Tommy Joe Martins has fallen back to the 6th spot, Landon Cassill 7th, Spencer Boyd 8th, Dalen Barr has rebounded all the way up to the number 9 position, make that the number 8 position as they shuffle it out, dropping Barry Hill back to 9th, and Josh Balicki, Blake McCandless now 10th.
Brad Perez in 11th. Tommy Joe Martins says it got shuffled back. He's going to be scored in the 12th position at the time being. Nick Olson in 13th. Ryan Ellis back up to 14th. Stephen Ellis, his other Ellis counterpart, in 15th. Noah Lewis in 16th. J.R. Houston 17th. Colin Fern in 18th. Justin Malillo in 19th. And David Chrissy rounding out the top 20.
Stephen Ellis free-falling through the field a little bit. He now caps the top 20. Ford Martin is 21st. Josh Altus 22nd. Joey Gase 23rd, the last car on the lead lap. Ryan Vargas 24th. Jared Overstreet 25th. Nick Payne 26th. Then these cars 2 or more laps down. Seth Eggert, Casey Heschel, Sam Whitman, Justin Schuler 30th. Toby Christie 31st. Matteo Marcheski 32nd. Lee Herron, William Pilote. The rest of the 34-car field that took the green flag. This concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break with more than 80,000 drivers on the service and more than 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, visit iRacing.com today. 55 make it 56 laps complete as they cross the line. Bailey Curry leads it over Chris Owens, Garrett Smithley, Michael Fisher, and Cody Ware among the top 5. And it might be a good time to tell you that tonight's Kickin' the Tires Lower Half Dash is brought to you by Kickin' the Tires, a multi-platform media outlet covering the world of motorsports. Started at the turn of the millennium by Jerry Jordan and primarily focused on NASCAR, Kickin' the Tires' recent success has grown its coverage to include AMA Supercross, the IMSA sports cars, the IndyCar series, local short track events, and one-off racing events for other genres, as well as esports. Stay informed and up to date on the world of motorsports by following them on social media or visiting kickinthetires.net. Caution flag waves Blake McCandless as we complete lap number 58 of 100. So still a long way to go, but now finally in the second half of this one, what happened to put us under the yellow?
Well, there were a lot of things happening that may have been the sole purpose that the yellow flag was flown. We saw a spin off the exit of corner number 2. It involved Chris Owens and Justin Melillo. We saw the 6 machine of Toby Christie, who was parked up here on the front straightaway. There were a couple of instances, Jacob, that may have been the one that triggered the yellow flag, but there has been a lot of calamity, particularly in the back half of the field, as we even saw during our race break right there for a couple of moments, just some cars getting together, keeping it to the inside, out of the leader's way. But there has been a lot of carnage to speak of here, and Jacob, I think it's because as we move further forward in this race, and you talked about iRacing and getting people on here, one of the things, if you look in our corners, if you're not familiar with iRacing, is all that slickness, all that rubber that's being laid down here at the Eldora Speedway, and how much that changes the handling here in the corners. If you're not on the top side all the way up against that cushion, you're riding the slick stuff. And apparently some of our new media brethren who may not be as familiar with iRacing, not having as much success navigating these corners when it's all slickened off like this.
Indeed, and it's made the track very treacherous. I believe Seth Eggert is going to get the free pass underneath this caution flag, put in one of the 2 Kickin' the Tires sponsored entries back on the lead lap. So Bailey Curry and Garrett Smithley. What a rally, Blake, that Garrett Smithley has had tonight to run all the way back up through the field to the runner-up spot after the crash that he had earlier. And even Tanner Berryhill has kind of re-racked, restacked, and gotten himself back in the top 6 after dominating the early part of this race.
It certainly has. Surviving is the name of the game. You see Garrett Smithley, not even a nose on that 26 machine. It cuts a little bit off the front of it, and he is still fast enough to be able to compete out here with the very top echelons of our field. We'll see if he can get a good restart. Curry gets another great one as they exit off the corner. Smithley is slow, and that allows Fisher to go by for position number 2. Don't know if that high side there, that's the second time we've seen the second place driver get a bad restart, perhaps just a bad spot to be, but they're 3 wide behind them. Slide job thrown by Landon Cassill in the middle side of that 3-car battle for around that 4th and 5th position. Cassill contact.
Oh,
He's
and Cassill goes
around.
Cassill around right in the middle of the field and gets pile driven by the 94 of Josh Altus. Absolutely nowhere for Altus to go. And we are under yellow with 37 laps left. Demolishes the 94 of Altus, and pretty serious damage to the Landon Cassill machine as well. Backing that up to see exactly how it got started, it was just Calamity Central off of 4. Cassill was going at it with Berryhill and went low. Another car around in front of him. That was the 54, I think it was, of Cody Ware, Blake McCandless, that went around, made contact with Cassill, and then Josh Altus a full head of steam right through the middle of the racetrack.
Well, and Jacob, you see a perfect example right here of how this track is loosening up. Cody Ware, maybe some door contact there with Tanner Berryhill off the exit of the corner. He slides and is trying to save that race car down. Unfortunately, it gets into the door of Cassill, and just the way that contact works when you slide down into a car like that, it usually ends up worse for the guy that gets hit in Landon Cassill than it did for Cody Ware. Ware got sideways but was able to escape from that, but as you can see from Landon Cassill, he's sitting broadside with about 20 street stocks pointed in his direction, and unfortunately for him, he gets spun on his top. He's able to keep it going straight, so doesn't have to use a tow, able to stay on the lead lap, but obviously loses all that track position that it took him about 30 or 40 laps to gain back.
And it's going to reshuffle the field one more time. And I'll give another shout out to the 30 of Spencer Boyd. What a job he's done being in the right place at the right time to avoid the melees and put himself up from 32nd on the grid all the way to 8th as it sits right now. Bailey Curry leads Michael Fisher, Garrett Smithley, Tanner Berryhill, Dalen Barr. Weren't we talking about Dalen in the battle for 3rd and falling all the way through the field? Look at him. He's worked his way all the way back up into 5th place in that number 91. A tremendous rally by several of these drivers, Blake McCandless, Dalen Barr, Tanner Berryhill among them.
And I think the one thing that sticks out about that 91 machine is how unscratched it is. There is no damage on that 91 car, which if you take a look throughout this field, there's really only about 2 or 3 drivers that can say the same for them and their race teams. And I think the only 2 other cars are Michael Fisher and Bailey Curry, who make up our top row. Curry once again has control of the restart. Another slide back for our 2nd place runner once again. Here comes Garrett Smithley to the bottom side, looks at throwing the slider, thinks better of it. Here comes Tanner Berryhill, who gets hooked after he hits the outside retaining wall. They're going to stack up behind them. Berryhill into the inside wall. We're still under the green flag.
Now the caution flag comes out on lap number 69. As Tanner Berryhill, he got hooked out of a spot in the top 5 and nose first, Blake McCandless, right into that inside barrier.
Nose first, and again, that happened because of the fact that not only did Smithley get a good restart and try to force it up there on the bottom side, it's just one of those things that Berryhill got into the outside wall. It pushes you off just a little bit, and unfortunately, he hooks himself, I won't even say off the nose of Garrett Smithley, because he does not have a nose on that race car. It was rather just the right front tire right there. It was just enough to where he couldn't save it before hitting the inside wall. A couple of cars spin in the back trying to avoid all the carnage, so just big-time junk here going on at Eldora, but Smithley not too worse for the wear. He's up to 3rd. And then how about this, Jacob? Brad Perez all the way to the back as he got involved in something a little bit earlier. He's right now scored in the 4th position.
Impressive drive for Perez as well, who, I feel like we've seen that a lot tonight, Blake. The up and downs. Drivers will get to the front, they'll be involved, they'll have to go to the back, and they'll run their ways all the way back forward. We've seen it out of Smithley, we've seen it out of Dalen Barr, we've seen it out of Perez, who now all of a sudden is shuffling back through this field, so not sure if he has pulled off the racetrack to address some damage potentially, but Perez free-falling through the order all of a sudden. Maybe it's just the commentator's curse.
Maybe so. I think I saw him. He was scored up in 4th. It looks like he stopped on the racetrack. Don't know if he was trying to fix something mechanically or if he's trying to get a wave around, and maybe they gave him a lap too much. But it fooled us for just a moment. But still a lot of guys to talk about when you think of guys that were up towards the front of the field, lost their track position, and now have the opportunity to get back up there. Still plenty of guys to talk about, but right now, Jacob, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to challenge Bailey Curry for the time being with how good of a restart he's able to get on the bottom. It seems like 2nd is not where you want to be when you take the green flag, just how much it's slicking off, a longer path. Not sure what it is, but right now that inside line is digging on these restarts. Let's see if they do it once again. Oh, they fool us. Bailey Curry is slowing off the pace. Move Fisher up into the top spot.
Oh, and they're wrecking behind them. Brad Perez climbs the wall, goes over, collects, I think that was Nick. No, Olsen got through it. But back there was Martins, it was Colin Fern, Kriske. I watched that 38 just climb the wall and keep climbing, and it was up and over, and somehow they're all going in the right direction again. But Blake McCandless, the caution flag finally waves, as that was half the top 10 and more.
Oh, it certainly was. The guys that were able to escape. How about Ryan Vargas, who now finds himself in the top 5? Joshua Bilicki right there in the 6th position. Landon Cassill found his way through. He was just flipping a couple of moments ago, so it looks like it's just going to come down to, Jacob, if you can be up at the front of the field at the right time and just have a chance to make a run at the end. Nick Olsen, who spun around off the nose of Garrett Smithley earlier, he's up into the 4th position. So, again, just can you miss these large accidents? And it's definitely something to say for missing something that, as you said, took out about half of our field right there off the exit of turn number 2.
So let's reset this for you now. Michael Fisher leads Garrett Smithley, Dalen Barr third, Nick Olson has climbed to the 4th spot, and you said Vargas survived. That was absolutely the proper assessment, and he all of a sudden finds himself 5th. How? I'm not really sure, but the Rhino finds himself 5th.
It's pretty amazing how some of these drivers have been able to avoid all that calamity going on and still find themselves in a position to try and run up front and win. And Jacob, we had some long green flag runs to start this race, but now with how long these cautions take, they have a lot of time to think about what line they're going to take, how much wear is on this racetrack, where they're going to go. But one thing that Michael Fisher did that last restart is absolutely prove me wrong, that there is still speed to be found in the high side on this restart. So we'll see now if Garrett Smithley, who would be the ultimate rebound story of the night, if he's able to get a good restart here and try and challenge for the lead. We'll see right here. Fisher puts the throttle down. Smithley not able to quite hang on with them. They'll be side by side for second. Fisher escapes, and again, they scatter behind them into 1.
Yeah, high, wide, and handsome is Garrett Smithley all over the back bumper of the 41 of Michael Fisher. Battle for the race lead is in turn 3. Dalen Barr to the bottom of the racetrack trying to make some tracks. Short way around the inside. Berm side by side for the lead at the line. Give it to Fisher by 9/1000. Slide job for the lead in turn 2. Barr visuals to the point as they try to go 3 wide in turn 3. Trading jabs for the top spot. Here comes Smithley.
And Smithley, they got checked up, and that's going to send Fisher and Smithley around at the front of the field. That's going to stack them up. They somehow keep things going straight off the exit of the corner, but Smithley dove it in hard, tried to take the lead, got turned around off the exit of the corner, and new race leader out of that battle is Dalen Barr. And don't forget, here comes Nick Olson. Where did he come from?
Nick Olson to second as Michael Fisher goes around back in the pack. Big damage. More cars collected, and Fisher, I think, going to take the tow back to the pits. He does, but the caution flag waves inside of 20 to go.
And what a tough blow that is for Michael Fisher and Garrett Smithley alike, as their chances of rebounding and getting back up to the front of this field within the next probably 15 or so laps, we'll call it, when we finally take the green flag once again, are all but dashed right here. And very unfortunate there. Smithley made a move for the lead after it was Fisher and Dalen Barr who got together down the back straightaway. Smithley had to take the opportunity. He throws the nice little slide job into 3 and 4, completes it, gets run into the back of. And unfortunate there for both of those drivers. Dalen Barr able to emerge from that. And how about this, Jacob Seelman? We saw him flipping down the front straightaway earlier. How about this? Landon Cassill still inside of the top 3.
Landon Cassill, if he pulls off a podium finish after all of this, wow. I really will have no words for that. Barr, Olson, Cassill, Josh. Have we called Josh Balicki's name at any point tonight aside from the full field rundowns? He's 4th, and Tanner Berryhill continues to find a way to be around in the top 5. He is 5th right now, as it looks like race officials have actually DQ'd Michael Fisher for the remainder of the night. So we'll be about 15 to go by the time we get back green. But how quick the tide turned for the driver of the 41.
Certainly so. A quick fall from grace from Michael Fisher, who looked like he may have been well on his way to winning this race. A couple of drivers now have the opportunity to take it themselves. Barr, Olson, Cassill, and here comes Tanner Berryhill on the inside. He passes Landon Cassill at the stripe. If I'm not mistaken, Jacob, that might be a black flag for Tanner Berryhill, but don't tell him that just now. He wants a piece of second. He's looking for the lead in 3 and 4.
Yeah, Dalen Barr continues to hold it, but the battle all eyes are on is for second. Tanner Berryhill inside of Nick Olson. Tanner Berryhill slide job for the race lead, but he can't get the power down on the bottom of the racetrack. Dalen Barr leads it off the outside on the back straightaway. He'll slide him again in turn number 3. Here comes Berryhill with the move counter punch. Dalen Barr back to the bottom of the racetrack.
And it'll be Barr that has it at the stripe. He's now forced to go to the bottom side of the racetrack along with several people up here in the top spot. Now Berryhill off the corner, down the back straightaway, has that momentum. They're nearly even in 3 and 4. Does the 91 slide up? No, he'll tuck it right along the inside of the racetrack. Give the lead, I believe, at the stripe. It's about a dead heat. 1/100th of a second. Give it to Tanner Berryhill, making it work there on the high side. They're still 2 wide, 3 rows deep.
It'll be 10 to go next time by. Dalen Barr still working the bottom. Landon Cassill on the inside berm. Berryhill up high. Lead change with 11 to go. Give it back to Dalen Barr by a front bumper at the line. 2 varying lanes as lap traffic is going to be a factor before the end of this as well.
Lap traffic, we'll see if our leaders can avoid them as one car spins in the back. Oh, Barr is going to get into the lap traffic in the 98 machine. That's going to cause a big wreck here off the exit of turn number 3 and 4. They're still going to go. Battling for the lead was Tanner Berryhill. He now emerges with it after contact from Sam Whitman. Landon Cassill is up to second, looking to move around the lap traffic.
That was Noah Lewis in the 98 that got into it with Dalen Barr, and that has opened the floodgates for the 17 of Tanner Berryhill from dominating the race early as they're crashing on the back straightaway in the low lane. Berryhill keeping it out in front inside of 10 to go. It'll be 8 to go, and it's a game of survival now in the final laps.
As it has been all race long, lap traffic going to be a big factor. Will they eventually throw a caution flag if the situation warrants itself? Right now, we stay under green. It's Berryhill, it's Cassill, and oh, by the way, Balicki. And what about this, Jacob? Garrett Smithley still somehow up into the 4th spot.
Yeah, but Smithley lost a ton of time. He is 2.3 seconds back, 6.5 laps to go. Landon Cassill is a little bit faster in the 89 than race leader Tanner Berryhill, but the problem is he's got about 12 car lengths to make up and 6 laps to do it in. 94 complete, 6 laps to go.
Well, Cassill was the faster driver that last time by. Bad news, though, not by enough. And, oh, boy, Jacob, does this change everything?
Caution with 6 laps to go. It may set us up for a green-white checker finish, and race control going to make this a single-file restart.
Oh, man, Jacob, I don't know if this plays to the benefit of Cassill or not. Obviously, when you're directly behind the leader, it's not going to help you regardless since the leader can get that jump. But right now, you think about double file may hurt anybody up here at the front of the field, but I think for Cassill, he gets the visual restart on that leader, and you have to think about he now gets to set himself up instead of being stuck there in the outside lane, looking to his left to try and see if he can get a good jump on Berryhill. He now gets to, slide low, slide high, do whatever he can to try and get a jump on that 17. But also you think about the benefit is with that 17 as well. He gets to look around and see what Cassill's doing and control everything about this restart.
Let's reset the order. Tanner Berryhill leads it. Landon Cassill second. Josh Balicki third. Garrett Smithley. After everything he's been through, I have no idea how he's 4th right now, but he sits 4th. Nick Olson, 5th. Dalen Barr, still somehow in 6th place. Bailey Curry, 7th. Nick Payne, 8th. Cody Ware, Josh Altus, the remainder of the top 10. 15 cars on the lead lap as we get set to go back to green with what appears to be going to be a green-white checker finish. I think we're going to get the green flag this time, Blake, and then have 2 laps to settle it. So Berryhill versus Cassill, who do you like?
They're going to throw the caution flag here, and I believe that's going to reset us up right here for that official green-white checkered finish. Think we were going to have a green-white checkered, but it was going to be naturally, not because of the service resetting it and giving us 2 more laps. So we throw the caution flag once again, but I hate to say it, Jacob, I think Tanner Berryhill, obviously being in control of this restart, despite that Cassill may have a little more speed in his 89 machine right now, I think that jump is going to be just enough to clear him. But, of course, Cassill has the opportunity to throw it in, perhaps use up the door of Tanner Berryhill if it so warrants.
It's a 1-lap dash. Pace car heading off. It is not extended, so this will be it. They'll get the green and white together, and we'll have 4 corners to settle it. Berryhill on the jump gets 3 car lengths clear. Landon Cassill having to fend off Garrett Smithley for the runner-up spot. Down the back straightaway, they're beating and banging behind them. Tanner Berryhill slides himself into turn number 3. Cassill trying to go around the outside, not gonna work, and Tanner Berryhill will win the Kickin the Tires lower half dash at Eldora Speedway over Landon Cassill, Josh Bilicki, Bailey Curry, and Garrett Smithley.
And a couple of drivers got together off the exit of 4. That's going to change the running order back half of the top 10 as Cody Ware makes his way up into the 6th spot. Joshua Altis finishes up in 7th. Brad Perez in 8th. Nick Olson 9th. And then Ryan Ellis able to find his way into the top 10.
What a night. What a race. 16 cars in. Up on the lead lap after all that, but the Victory Donuts beginning for the Bang sponsored number 17, and now a Polish victory lap for Tanner Berryhill. Oh man, I don't know what we just saw, Blake McCandless, but I'll tell you this, I was thoroughly entertained.
Likewise, Jacob, likewise. We saw it was a complete unknown what we were going to get tonight. We saw a lot of great long green flag racing. We saw some cautions there at the end, but in the end, that theme of attrition comes into play, and fortunately for Tanner Berryhill, he gets spun earlier on after starting in the top spot. He finds a way to claw his way back forward, gets an unbelievable restart when he was back there in about 4th or 5th, makes his way past Cassill and Bilicki, and for him, that's enough to take the win tonight.
So we're going to go ahead and give you the full field rundown and then hope to chat with a couple of our top finishers from this evening if we can get them involved in tonight's broadcast. But Tanner Berryhill picking up the victory over Landon Cassill and Josh Bilicki. Bailey Curry was 4th. Garrett Smithley was the 5th spot. Cody Ware, 6th. Josh Altis in 7th tonight. Brad Perez, up to 8th. Nick Olson ends up 9th after being bounced like a pinball late in the going. And Ryan Ellis, where did he come from, Blake McCandless, to round out the top 10?
Ellis found a way to get it done and call it home with a top 10 finish. Ford Martin brings it home 11th. How about this? Joey Gase, 35th. He finishes up in the 12th spot. Tommy Joe Martins, after a strong run in the early going, finishes up in 13th. Nick Payne in 14th. Dalen Barr rounds out the top 15. Colin Fern in 16th. Jarrett Overstreet, one of our early top contenders. He is the first car scored a lap down in 17th. Stephen Ellis in 18th. Ryan Vargas, after being up front with potential to bring home a top 5, brings it home 19th, and Noah Lewis rounds out the top 20.
Noah Lewis was where all the calamity started there, about 10 to go with Dalen Barr. That was what started everything getting wild. Justin Malillo in 21st, J.R. Houston 22nd tonight, Casey Heschel 23rd, 24th to David Kriske, Seth Eggert 25th, Justin Schuler 26th. There's the Kickin the Tires cars. They finish nose to tail, but it's Eggert with the nod. Sam Whitman 27th, Toby Christie 28th, 29th to Spencer Boyd, 30th Michael Fisher, who dominated a decent portion of the middle stages there. Mateo Marcheski in 31st, 32nd to Chris Owens, Lee Heron 33rd, William Pelote in 34th, the last car to at least start tonight's race. Blake McCandless, takeaways from what was a wild, woolly, and otherwise very, very entertaining night at Eldora.
Well, Takeaway first, want to thank you guys for bringing me up here in the booth to enjoy all this action with you. No, it's been very fun, despite a lot of the challenges we're all facing right now, to come out, do something like this, provide some entertainment for not only the race fans, but this is entertainment for you and me as well. I think we can agree on that. But final assessment of the night, Eldora has this. When you come to Eldora, you know you're going to see something spectacular, and despite whether it's carnage ridden or not, we definitely saw that tonight. These street stocks have a way of just putting on a spectacular show wherever they go, and here at Eldora, it is no different. Even if you wound them up all the way around, you still find a way to get some hard white knuckle racing in there, and they were able to do that tonight.
I want to pull in the guy who had easily the most bad luck, but I would argue one of the fastest cars at multiple points of this race, and see if we can't touch base with him. Bar Visuals, you got a copy with us? The sound of silence, Blake McCandless. But I will say to all of that I think regardless, Dalen was certainly one of those who probably should have been in that mix in the final laps and just didn't get the opportunity.
And that's exactly right, Jacob. You could probably list off a handful of drivers who really had a legitimate shot, both in track position and speed-wise, that really had an opportunity to try and go up there and win this race. Of course, Dalen Barr is included in that, but there's several guys you think about. Garrett Smithley was strong at portions of the night. Obviously, a couple of guys that finished directly behind him, and Landon Cassill and Josh Billicky had their chances. But then you think about all those drivers, Michael Fisher, Tommy Joe Martins, that at portions of the race looked like they were in position to take advantage. But Eldora, these street stocks, they just had another way of finishing it out tonight.
All right, so let's check back in with Seth Eggert after that one, who won the Kickin the Tires battle, by the way, by one spot, Seth. So there's your bragging rights for the night over you and Schuler. But how wild was that?
I think I was involved in every caution only because they kept happening in front of me and I was rammed from behind.
Oh my goodness! So for you, impressions of that? Did it go anything like you expected?
I expected it to be chaotic. I think it was a little more chaotic than I was thinking it would be. I had decent pace and I had decent time, and I was able to hold my own until late in the race. I was involved in one of the wrecks that they didn't throw a caution for, and it just killed the toe of my car, and my engine blew with about 6 or 7 laps to go. So at that point, I was out of it.
What was it? I mean, we were looking at it and thinking we didn't know where to look. Was it kind of the same way for you guys?
Yeah, I would see a wreck happening about straight away ahead. I would aim to avoid it, and by the time I got there, either more cars were involved in it, or I would get slowed down, and someone behind me wouldn't slow down, and I think one time I caught the catch fence, as bad as that sounds.
Ouch. Yeah, well, you caught the catch fence. Perez at some point. Brett tried to clear it. I think he got flipped over there after riding the wall. So at least you can say you survived and didn't end up on your top.
Exactly, and I did finish the race. I was able to tow and get back in. Granted, I think I was 5 or 6 laps down at that point, but I'm glad I was at least able to finish, and that was my ultimate goal.
Well, you did that, and now we have to look at this and go, okay, we've had Justin Schuler. We need to get Jerry Jordan in on this next time. Jerry might disagree. I know he's watching. Jerry might disagree, but we need to get Jerry in on this.
I will say this. If he gets in, I honestly think, given a little bit of practice, he will be better than he admits.
All right, fair enough. We'll take that, and whatever you say to Schuler, you can at least brag that you finished ahead of him in the inaugural version of the lower half dash.
Yes, and it was definitely the lower half dash for a reason.
Indeed, it was. That was Seth Eggert, who finishes, where did he end up, Blake McCandless? 25th. So top 25 finish. There we go.
There you have it. Always you gotta find the positives in everything. Actually, Jacob Seaman will exit the booth here for just a moment. But on behalf of everybody here, I just want to say thank you, Jacob, for bringing me out here. Last minute deal. Had a ton of fun tonight. Always great to work with you up here in the booth and just have a good time calling a crazy and wild race. And hopefully, we're able to do some more of this in the future because I think the fans and obviously the drivers enjoy coming out here and trying to be a part of this.
We are attempting to get race winner Tanner Berryhill connected with us before we go off air. We're battling a couple of technological difficulties for some reason, and we'll see. While we're waiting on it, we'll see if we can't connect with Dalen Barr again for a minute. Let's try this one more time, shall we? Dalen Barr, it is the STN booth. You got a copy, sir? Still the sound of silence, McCandless.
Well, let's see if he responds to some different, somebody different. We'll bring it in here one more time. Let's see if I'm the magic trick. Dalen Barr, Blake McCandless up in the STN booth. You got a copy, buddy. See, there we go. We can't blame it on you. Now it's both our fault.
No, it is both our faults, and I am not 100% sure where the technical glitches are coming in. We are trying to get Tanner Berryhill plugged in, like I said before we go off the air. I guess we'll see what we can't try Justin Malillo real quick, Blake McCandless. That ought to be entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
Justin Malillo, STN booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
How was that from your vantage point? We didn't know where to look all night. What did you think?
Well, I didn't know where to look either because I didn't have a button map for my tear-offs for about half the race.
Yikes. And at Eldora, of all places, that is not fun. So basically, you were flying blind the second half.
No, I ended up, at one point, I ended up getting some heavy damage and I needed to tow. I think I got turned somewhere in the mid-pack and then I was trying to hold it low, and then I'm really sorry to Chris Owens because he was running up front and he had nowhere to go. So I ended up with a meatball flag. I took a tow, ended up going 4 laps down, but I mapped a button at that point. So the rest of my race was pretty clean and clear.
Did you have enough fun to come back and do this again?
Oh, absolutely. And a big thanks goes out to everybody who was putting this on. Cody Ware, Ryan Ellis, Tommy Joe Martins, Kickin the Tires, STN, everybody who had a hand in making this happen tonight and who's going to be making this happen going forward. Really glad to be a part of it.
Well, we appreciate it, definitely. Justin, look forward to seeing you the next time, and thanks for taking a couple minutes to come up and chat with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see if we can't pull one more in for a minute, get one more of our media brethren in here and try and dial up Noah Lewis for a second. Try that. Noah Lewis, STN booth. You got a copy?
I gotcha.
Okay, so much like Seth, I feel like we called your name in just about every single thing that there was tonight. But hey, you outran Seth and Justin. So in terms of the media squad, I think you get bragging rights for the week.
I don't know how. I really tell you, it was really something. I think Seth really hit the nail on the head earlier when he talked about us kind of preparing for the wrecks in front of us, and then by the time we got there, either it was a junkyard or someone started to move down or up the track, and it just became very difficult to navigate them. So I think, all these guys getting in here, some guys unexperienced, some guys with a lot of experience, overall had a blast getting out here with all of these guys. And hey, yeah, I'll take the bragging rights.
What was that like, though, as the race wore on? How crazy was the from top to bottom? Was it trying to find a lane, trying to not get collected in stuff? It looked like it was twice as insane from where you guys were sitting from where we were just watching up here.
Oh my gosh, it certainly was. To have a limited perspective on who's below you, and then also with the iRacing spotter, on dirt, it's a little challenging for the spotter to keep up because guys are diving in, and as quickly as they're there, they're not there. So trying to navigate, with cars, especially on those restarts, making sure to stay up out of the wall, because if you hit the wall, you could bounce into someone below you, and everybody's so tight there. So I mean, it was very difficult to navigate it, but overall, just trying to steer clear. At the beginning there, I was making some good way up through the field because I was getting around a few things, and then here at the end we had, I think Seth talked about, a big old wreck on the back with Tommy Joe and a few other guys that a caution didn't come out for, and that really killed the car. So had to go a couple laps down for that one, but it was difficult to steer clear of those wrecks. But overall, like I said, man, what a fantastic, fun time just to hop in here with all that's going on in the world and kind of forget about things for a little while.
Did you have enough fun to come back next time?
Oh, you better believe I'll be there.
There you go. By the way, Justin Schuler just called you out in the feed chat afterwards. He says you've got a target on your back now against all us media brethren.
Hey, bring it on.
Oh, man. Noah Lewis for TSJ Sports actually ends up top 20, finishes 20th at the end of the inaugural Kickin' the Tires lower half dash series. So, Noah, thanks for taking a couple minutes to chat with us, and we will see you next time we pull one of these things together.
Of course. Thank you guys so much.
All right, Blake McCandless, I will now ask you for a looking ahead and actually a wish list. So if we're sending these guys to another place next week, where are you petitioning Ryan Ellis and Cody Ware to send these guys?
Well, let's get one thing straight. Are we still going to be running street stocks? I think that's been the way things have gone around here, but
that seems to be the general consensus of fun. If we're still running street stocks, let's do it.
Let's see. I don't know. I think when you look at street stocks, I really like the potential that Lernerville could bring out in these guys. Ooh. I think they could put a really good show on there.
Did you hedge your bet, Matt?
Hey, guess what? We just pulled Dalen out of the radio channel and interrupted his conversation. Oh, so we'll apologize for that. Yes. Hi. Third time's the charm. How about that? You had a fast car, came through the field twice, and then all heck broke loose at the end. What happened?
I don't know. Someone was just kind of chilling on the bottom and trying to get in a pit road and ran the bottom and couldn't get out of my way quick enough, and I got into the back of him.
How much fun before that, though? I know it's not necessarily fun having to go through the field, but it looked like, at least from how fast that car was, that you were just able to put it wherever you needed to go.
Well, it really started slicking off on the top, like really bad. Like you could see how the guys were wall riding, and you could just find a little bit of that tack at the bottom, and you could hook it. But if you missed it, you really missed it, and you could see that when me and Barry Hill we were not sliding each other, but he was on the top and I was on the bottom, and I'd get a run down the back because I found the tack, and then he would get a run on the top because I missed it. But it was fun. It was frustrating. I hate fixed setup racing. I hate racing where there's a whole bunch of cautions.
So Dalen's going to petition Ryan Ellis and Cody Ware for changes before the next one. That's what that boils down to.
When Ryan said what the race was earlier today, I asked him if it was fixed or open. And he said fixed, to my dismay, because I tell you what, if it was an open setup, we would have lapped the field. They would have had to start me at the back because I would have lapped the field.
Are you coming back? Are you coming back for redemption next time?
I don't even know what our next race is, so it depends. Maybe not. I don't know. Depends.
Game time decision. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Any shout-outs before we turn you loose?
I want to thank Michael Frisch has been teaching me how to dirt race, like really, really well. A lot of time on dirt. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be anywhere near as fast as I was or am. I'm a dirt kid. Grew up in the Northeast, watching dirt, and just doing it on iRacing just is terrible for me. So I didn't expect to run that well. So shout out to Frisch for that. Shout out to to all the other guys on my team, Matt Wishart, Kyle Riley, Jake Poulin, Andrew Schwartz. Just cuz I want to say hi. Shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast. Really appreciate that. Thanks Jerry Jordan for sponsoring the whole series. Ryan Cody for putting it on. Yeah, that's it.
Well, we had fun, and even if it took us 3 tries to get you, we're glad you took a few minutes to chat with us, Dale.
Yeah, I was
Congratulations.
downstairs running around with my dogs and saying hi to the girlfriend. She's trying to take a nap while I'm up here yelling and screaming at iRacing.
We'll forgive you this time. Top 15.
I just hope she forgives me.
Valid point. That's Dale and Barr, and we are going to try Blake McCann. Listen, it took us a little bit to pull this off, but we're going to queue up our race winner at long last, Tanner Berryhill. It's the STN booth. Congratulations. Took us a little while to get you here, but what a race. And you had to run your way all the way back through the field after calamity there in the first half, and right place, right time at the end to pick up the win tonight.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. I'm glad that we were able to do that race. This whole quarantine thing's been a little boring, so it's nice to go out there and race with some old friends.
What was this race like, even for you guys at the front of the field? Because it looked like just when the top 3 or 4 were maybe going to settle down and actually be able to get a rhythm for a little bit, then somebody would pitch a crazy slider and there would be contact and y'all would be all over the place again as fast as we could snap our fingers.
Yeah, and that sure happened. I had the lead and I thought I could get a little gap on them, and then I don't know who it was, but they threw a pretty good slider, and then we started racing, and that's when I wrecked for the first time. But as soon as Cody and Ryan told me that we were running Street Stocks at Eldora, I knew that I had to join in on that, just because these cars are so much fun to slide around. You can bang them up a little bit, and they're a little more forgiving than an open wheel car.
I was going to ask you about that. You have a little bit of dirt midget experience. Does anything you've done on dirt in real life translate over to the sim at all?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that translates to me is the way you actually race. When you go to throw slide jobs, stuff like that, that's pretty similar to how it is in real life. The only thing it doesn't really account for in iRacing is you can't really build a cushion. Like, you kind of get that line around the fence, but it doesn't really build a curb, which in real life, if you hit a curb sideways, that can bite you pretty quick. But other than that, it's the best place to learn to race without tearing anything up and spending a lot of money.
I know the objective for this one was as much about fun as anything else, but is there a little satisfaction in having some bragging rights over guys like Cassill and Garrett, guys that you've raced wheel to wheel with for a long time?
Oh yeah, of course. You never want to lose, right? So yeah, being able to win this race is pretty cool. It's an equal playing field out here.
Well, before we cut you loose and say goodnight on this broadcast, Tanner, shout out to sponsors. Anybody you want to say a thank you to? I know Bang has been a big part of your racing career for a while.
Bang Energy, yeah, thanks Bang Energy. And Hoosier Tires on my car tonight. It was either that or the what was the other car? The Metal Militia car. So yes, into my Logitech G25 steering wheel that I've had since 2008.
Again, somebody proving that it does not take $1,000 setup to go and run well on this thing. Tanner,
That's
congratulations,
right.
And we appreciate you jumping in and chatting with us for a few minutes.
Hey, thanks for having me. See you guys.
That's Tanner Berryhill, Blake McCandless, and now we can officially say goodnight on this broadcast. I think we had just about as much fun as they did up here.
I think we did. And I'll have to second what Tanner said there as far as the steering wheel goes. Driving Force GT has been going over 10 years strong now, so definitely doesn't take a great setup. But unfortunately, when something happens like today in transit, I had a monitor go out and not usable anymore. So as someone who grew up on this sim playing on a laptop and finally getting the triple monitors, and now you have this happen, it stinks. But that is a great reminder. You don't need the ultra $1,000 setup to try and get on here and race with these guys. You just need a wheel, a computer, and a will to go out there and race. And you're able to get it done. But likewise, Jacob, I know I said it before. I'll say it again. Thank you for having me once again. It was fun, and hopefully this isn't the last one.
Oh, I don't think it will be for sure. As soon as we have more details on where the next stop for the Kickin' the Tires Lower Half Dash series will be, courtesy of either Ryan Ellis or Cody Ware, we will certainly pass it along. Stay tuned to Kickin' the Tires on Twitter or kickinthetires.net. For that, of course, thanks to Jerry Jordan and kickinthetires.net for sponsoring the Lower Half Dash series, as well as Universal Coin and Bullion for their support as a presenting sponsor of the series as well. Visit universalcoin.com for more information. And with that, that's pretty well going to do it from the half mile of clay that is Tony Stewart's Eldora Speedway. So for all the folks at STN, for our producer Zach Johnson, and for my broadcast partner in the booth, Blake McCandless, as well as Ryan Ellis, Cody Ware, Jerry Jordan, I'm Jacob Seelman. Keep it off the wall, and we'll see you next time on the virtual racetrack. Folks, congratulations to Tanner Berryhill, the inaugural winner of the Kickin' the Tires Lower Half Dash Series. Till we meet again.